Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The resonance of Allah is the name of one of Bawa Muhaiyaddeen's major writings. He actually dictated it while he was in Sri Lanka to one of his disciples who now lives in the United States. For those of you who may know him, his name's Tajuddin. And he wrote it down. Now, the word resonance is an important word, and we should try and understand it. When Gabriel came to the various prophets and spoke to them, he spoke through a resonance. When he came to Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, he gave Muhammad Allah's message through a resonance. That resonance became words, and those words ended up becoming the Quran. Now, each of us has a certain resonance. Every element has a certain resonance. Everything in this world gives off a certain vibration. Now, the question for each of us, and that we all have to think about and try to resolve, is how close is our resonance to the resonance of Allah? I mean, it's easy to talk about words. It's easy to say words. It's easy to say the resonance of Allah. But how about the resonance of each of us? What is our resonance? How do we vibrate? And the resonance has to do with our acceptability to the close circle of Allah. If our resonance is off, if our resonance is demonic, or if our resonance is other than divine, we don't fit in with the divine resonance. We don't fit in with the divine nature of things, because that nature has a certain resonance. So through the world, there is a vibration that goes through everything. And one of those vibrations that goes through everything is Allah's vibration, God's vibration. And the question is, for us, how attuned are we to that vibration? Now, take a tuning fork and you hit it. And if you hit a tuning fork, other tuning forks who are tuned to the same vibration, the same resonance, will begin to vibrate when that vibration comes through a tuning fork. So if you had a bunch of tuning forks lined up in a row and they were all tuned to the same vibration, and you hit one, all of them would begin to vibrate because they would catch that vibration. So how do we tune ourselves to Allah's resonance? How do we bring ourselves to that vibration? What is it that we have to do? Well, first, we have to understand that that vibration is not from our physical body. It's from our internal self that is not physical, that is not elemental. It's from the qualities that we gather and the qualities that we have. And these qualities give off a vibration, they give off a resonance, and that resonance is the understanding, the reality of who we are on a spiritual level. That resonance is either a very low resonance, an animal resonance, or a higher resonance, a resonance that is profoundly wise, a resonance that vibrates with closeness to reality. How do we create within us a resonance that is acceptable to God? Now, our eyes can't see God. Our ears can't hear God. But there are eyes inside of our eyes that can make that connection. And that connection is made on a level of resonance. That connection is made on from our internal non-elemental self as it resonates. The connection is made with Allah. I remember Bawa saying that when you came in contact with a true Sufi, you could feel their resonance. You could feel what they have accomplished through their lives and how they have dedicated themselves to reality, and you could feel reality from them and through them. And this was evident when we walked into the teacher's room. There was a resonance that was going on within the room, a quality that existed within the room that was different when you weren't close to him. And that quality could overwhelm you. And the interesting thing is, and this is one of the reasons obviously we went to him, was he could bring your resonance to align with his resonance, just like a tuning fork. He could tune you to his resonance. And this was done in many different ways. One of the things that we need to really understand is that words, and Bawa had multitudes of words and multitudes of talks that he gave, but the point of the talks was twofold. One, the words were explanations, but secondly, the words created a resonance within the room, and they would work on you through another level than just the words. So things were going on that you weren't necessarily aware of, that weren't necessarily explained, but alterations were occurring to your resonance because you were under the influence of his resonance. And what he could do with his resonance is make you like him. The whole point of an elevated transcendent teacher is to become like him, to somehow alter your inner being to be like his inner being. And the work that he does on us, a teacher like that, is to alter our resonance, to alter the vibration that we exist on. And another way to say that is to give the qualities that are his qualities to us, to somehow transfer those qualities to us by showing them to us in many different ways. One way was we saw the physical manifestation and we could interact with that physical manifestation and imitate that physical manifestation. We understood how he acted in different situations. We understood how he reacted to different people coming before him. We saw his consistent kindness, his consistent love, his consistent compassion, his consistent merciful attitude, his consistent melting heart that understood the difficulties of everybody that came before him. And he didn't put down or denigrate their difficulties. He tried to help them with their difficulties so that they could move into another space. There were a group of disciples, and a new one was found stealing. And the disciples reported to the sheikh that this one disciple was stealing. And the sheikh didn't do anything about it. He stole again. And the disciples all ran to the teacher and told him he was stealing. And he didn't do anything about it. The disciples stole a third time. And the disciples, the other disciples, did a petition to the teacher that they all signed and said, we can't stay here with a thief among us. Either you throw him out or we're going to leave. And the teacher brought everybody together. And he said, all of you who have signed this petition know the difference between right and wrong. You've elevated yourself and you've brought yourself to higher stations. This poor man who just came here doesn't know the difference between right and wrong. And if I don't teach him the difference between right and wrong, how is he ever going to learn the difference between right and wrong? So you all can stay or leave, but it's my obligation to teach him the difference between right and wrong. The thief was sitting in the middle of all this, and he heard all this and began to cry and never stole again. But when you wonder why a teacher may keep people within the fold who don't seem to be worthy of the fold, realize that there were times when none of us are worthy to be in the fold. We've all transgressed. And if the teacher didn't have patience with us, and if the teacher wasn't there to help us, and if the teacher didn't have mercy towards us, where would we be? So when we work on beginning to understand who we are, and we work on beginning to understand our qualities, and we work on beginning to understand the resonance of Allah that permeates the entire world, we need to work on finding that resonance and connecting with it. There is a transparency to existence, but that transparency is only available at the highest frequencies close to Allah. When you become close to Allah, the vibration of Allah within creation becomes visible to you and available to you. More things become visible and available. The overriding mercy within creation becomes apparent. The overriding compassion within creation becomes apparent. The overriding compassion that is directed towards each of us individually becomes apparent. And as that happens, our gratitude for Allah rises, our gratitude to our Creator rises, and as any one of the qualities that belong to Allah rises within us, the other qualities of Allah also grow within us. So as your gratitude grows, your compassion grows. As your gratitude grows, your mercy grows. As your gratitude grows, your forgiveness grows. As your gratitude grows, your kindness grows. Your love grows. All of the positive qualities that we're capable of having grow as any one of them grows, because all of these qualities are interrelated, and even though they have different names and are separated, are all part of one. It's a very complex, integrated arrangement, but it's all one, even though it has facets. So all of the various facets grow within us as each facet grows. And we become more and more attuned to reality and less attuned to illusion. And as we become less attuned to illusion, we become less distracted by all of the things that illusion has to offer. Now, gratitude doesn't need worldly treasures. Gratitude is satisfied because it's attached to God's treasures. And God's treasures are bigger than any of the treasures within illusion. But to understand that, we have to have a flow of that going through us. And that happens when we have created a resonance that flows through our being. And that resonance brings satisfaction to our being. That resonance puts us in touch with truth and with reality, and brings us to a place where we are satisfied moment to moment to moment, where we are no longer plagued by our past indiscretions. We are no longer plagued by past memories. We come to live in the moment as opposed to living what we consider our entire history and having to react to everything that has happened to us. The Buddha was in his monastery with his disciples and decided he wanted to go out alone for a while. And his disciples all joined to go with him, and he said, "No, I'm going to walk by myself today. So they all stayed back. And as he was walking, a day went by, and it is the Buddhist tradition to ask for alms when they become hungry. So he had his bowl and he asked for alms. And the man who he asked was in a bad state. He had one cow, and that cow died that morning. And he was in no mood to help anybody else because he was distraught. And he began to scream at the Buddha and curse the Buddha for having the nerve to ask him at that moment when he was involved in all of these problems. The Buddha didn't say a word, he just walked on. And one of the people in the village came up to the man and he said, "I don't think you understood who was just in front of you." He said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "That was the Buddha." He said, "It couldn't be the Buddha. The Buddha always has an entourage with him. There would have been lots and lots of people." And he said, "Well, the word is that the Buddha has decided to travel by himself for a while. That was him, and this is what you did to him." The man again became very upset, and he began to run to try and find the Buddha to apologize. Finally, he found them, and he fell to the ground and asked the Buddha to forgive him and to punish him somehow for what he had done. And the Buddha said to him, "When did this happen?" And the man said, "Yesterday." And the Buddha said, "I only live now." And it was done. It was over. He didn't hold on to it. He didn't need to make any special arrangement for what had happened. He didn't need retribution. He didn't need vengeance. It was in the past. It went by and it didn't affect him any longer. Can we walk through our life now, as opposed to yesterday, as opposed to 18 minutes ago, without carrying the baggage of all of the praise and blame that comes our way through the day? Can we walk through our life in the present without being affected by this entire history of ourselves that we carry with us and that causes us trauma and pain and all of the difficulties that happen when we are somehow offended, when we are somehow misjudged, when we are somehow abused. In this life, we will be abused. There's no question about it. The question is, how can you handle that abuse? And can you be like a duck in water, wherein the water doesn't penetrate the duck's feathers? Can we be at the point where the illusion in this world doesn't penetrate us and doesn't cause us harm, doesn't cause us to have to react to it in order to do what we think is protecting the self? A lot of people live their entire lives protecting the self. Every situation is another situation for them to protect themselves. Some people walk around with guns just in case they have to protect themselves. Can we rely on God's protection? Can we have the gratitude that understands how we are protected, why we are protected, and the way we are protected? Can we see all of the gifts that we're given every day by our Creator that sustains and maintains us? And can we be grateful for that? And can that be enough to satisfy all our needs and to override all of the difficulties that the world presents us? Can we understand the difference between the illusory world and Hak, the world of reality? And can we be close enough to Hak so that the illusory world's effect on us is lessened and brought down, and we walk through it without having to stop every moment and react to it? It's work. It's work that we have to do. Now, my profession when I was working was as a professional reactor. I was a lawyer, and what lawyers do is they react to personal difficulties, personal traumas, personal insults, personal injuries, whatever comes up, they try to resolve those things. Well, time does away with a lot of it, and the difficulty of the process does away with a lot of it. But what you learn is that any situation can be blown up into something excruciating, or any situation can be tamed down to where it's nothing and you can move on. We have to learn how to diffuse difficult situations. We have to learn how to not react to difficult situations. We have to learn how to forgive and how to forget. And this is a work that has to be done by each of us if we are going to move on the straight path towards Allah. One of the phenomenons that occurred when we entered into the space of our Sheikh was that we were given an elixir that would soothe whatever situation we were in. All of a sudden, the problems didn't seem to be so problematic because the love that we felt was so overwhelming that the problems began to be decreased in their severity. Now, Allah is constantly decreasing the severity of our problems. Allah is constantly sending love towards us. Can we bring our resonance to the area that feels that constant incoming of love? If you're trying to get a certain radio station and you're tuned to the wrong frequency, you are not going to be able to hear that radio station. We need to be able to be tuned to the frequencies of God's qualities, which surround us, which we are engulfed in, which are everywhere. But we, as a receptacle, as a resonance trying to be in touch with those resonances, can only do it if we have reached certain qualities within ourselves. So, it's said, if you take one step towards Allah, Allah takes 10 steps towards you. Think of it that if you can tune yourself to the reception of God's qualities, those qualities come to you. So if you can just tune the radio, the rest happens. So we have to learn how to tune that internal radio. And once we tune it, then there is a, a river of God's qualities that comes into us, a river of God's qualities that overwhelms us, a river of God's qualities that soothes us and brings us calm and peace. But we have to tune the radio. We have to tune that station. And that means we at least need to begin the growth of compassion and mercy and forgiveness within our being. The prophets all say that you shall be forgiven as you forgive. Mercy will come to you as you give mercy. And it's true. You begin the flow, and then God takes over. But we have to put some effort into this. One of the hadith is that Allah loves effort. We are required to put forth effort, and then the rest is given to us. So we have to constantly, whenever we are in a foul mood, make sure that we do something to get out of that foul mood. Whenever we are in a state where we feel like we need retribution, we have to get out of that state. We have to learn how to change states. We have to learn how to go from lower states to transcendent states. We have to work on that in our own being. And we will find that as we bring ourselves higher, we will automatically go higher than that because of God's intervention. So if you want to be intervened with by God, open yourself up to God. If you want God's assistance, surrender your will to His will. If you want God to be involved in your life, then open yourself up to God's qualities. Allow forgiveness and love and kindness to be part of you on a regular basis. And every time you have the opportunity to display those qualities, display them. It starts in the home, and then it goes on with every interaction that you have. Your interactions with others is the example for what God's interactions with you will be. So if you are in a constant vengeful state, don't expect a constant forgiving state to come your way. If you are in a constant forgiving state, you'll see the results. You'll see what happens. You'll see how these things go on. We need to become creators of certain kinds of spaces, of certain kinds of qualities. We need to eliminate from ourselves the qualities which don't belong to Allah, and we need to bring into ourselves the qualities which do belong to Allah. And one way to do this is to read the Asmaul Husna, to begin to understand the nature of God's qualities and how they work, and then begin to incorporate them within ourselves. This is how we tune ourselves to reality. This is how we bring about the resonance of reality into ourselves. It's a very straightforward methodology. It's the method that our Sheikh taught us. He said our qualities have to become God's qualities. Our intentions have to become Allah's intentions. Our kindness has to become Allah's kindness. Our love has to become Allah's love. And Allah's love is unconditional. It's without limits. It's so far beyond anything that we can comprehend that we will be overwhelmed by it when it comes to us. So we have to put forth a little effort to get it going. It's something like a pump when you are trying to draw water from a well. You pull the handle up and down, up and down, up and down, and then slowly a trickle comes out. And then after a while, the water pours out by itself. You don't even have to pump anymore. But we have to prime the pump. We have to get it started. That is our obligation, to begin the process of integrating ourselves into Allah's qualities. And once we do that, Allah will do the rest. But we have to begin the process. So understand that Allah does it all, but we are required to put forth effort. And in that effort, we will be greatly rewarded. And what will we be rewarded with? We will be rewarded with God's qualities. And what greater reward is there in all of creation than to have Allah give unto us that which He is? May it be so for each and every one of us. May it come quickly, and may we begin to understand the true nature of the glory and the magnificence and the majesty of our Lord. Ameen. Ameen. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.